Welcome back to the channel. For my new folks, my name is Braylon. You can call me Bray Gray, and I'm a UX designer and photographer based in San Diego, California. Now today I want to get into my photography bag a bit because I want to talk about a skill that I think all photographers should possess, and that skill is improvisation. So I recently had a photo shoot, and this shoot was completely spur of the moment, last minute, unplanned shoot. And so, as you might imagine, there were quite a few points within this shoot where I had to improvise. I had to roll with the punches, I had to adapt in order to get the shots we needed for this shoot. And so what I want to do is I actually want to bring you along for this shoot and point out those scenarios where I had to improvise and employ different techniques and strategies in order to get the shots we needed. Now, just to let you know, I'm approaching this from the perspective of a portrait, fashion, lifestyle photographer. But what I'm hoping is that what I'm about to share would be useful to you all out there who do other types of photography as well. So with that in mind, let's go ahead and get into it. All right, so first off, let's talk about why I think it's important that photographers know how to improvise on a photo shoot. Now, generally, you actually do want to plan your photo shoots. In fact, I think that's best practice. Everything from location scouting to wardrobe planning, right on down to the gear you're gonna need to use for your shoot. Planning is important, but here's the thing. Things do not always go according to plan. Something might go wrong, something might be out of place, and you're gonna have to adapt in order to get the job done. Otherwise, you might not get a second chance at the photo shoot. Wedding photographers, you know what I'm talking about. But with that said, let me go ahead and segue into the setup for the shoot that I did. Now, like I said, it was very impromptu, spur of the moment, and basically I had a model reach out to me for a TFP shoot. She had a lightweight concept and we just decided to run with it. So we ended up meeting in downtown San Diego. We didn't have any specific location in mind. We just planned to set a rendezvous point, set a meetup point, and then we let creativity and ambition take it from there. Now, as a one-man crew, I did not want to bring a lot of gear. I knew we would be doing some walking around downtown SD, and I did not want to be lugging that around. So basically, I only brought enough gear to take photos and to capture that BTS footage, for the channel. And so the BTS gear that I brought was one, the Sony ZV-1 with one of those bendy leg tripods because it's pretty lightweight, pretty easy to set up, and I could pretty much put it anywhere. Now, I also brought the GoPro Hero 8, and I have one of those GoPro necklaces where I could just put the GoPro around my neck, use it hands-free, and capture that nice and crispy POV footage. And so because I brought that BTS gear, I wanted to keep my photography kit pretty simple. And so the camera that I used was the Sony a7 IV, and I only brought one lens, which was the Sigma 14 to 24 millimeter f2.8 lens. And the reason I brought that lens was because my model communicated that she really wanted to get those full body shots, and she also wanted to incorporate a lot of the environment in the background of the shots as well. So the 14 millimeter end of that lens worked really well for that. And then I thought the 24 millimeter end could work well for if I wanted to get a little bit closer, get a little bit tighter for those portrait shots, probably from the waist up or maybe from the shoulders up, get those types of shots. So yeah, I thought the lens was a good balance for what we were trying to accomplish. But yeah, that was the basic setup of the shoot. Now let's talk about some areas and scenarios where I had to use that improvisation skill. All right, so the first and biggest area where I had to improvise on this photo shoot was in the balance of location, wardrobe, and props. Going into the shoot, I had no idea what my model was gonna be wearing, but I wasn't too worried about it because downtown San Diego has an architectural aesthetic that it's very accommodating to a variety of clothing styles, so that wasn't too bad. Also, my model brought some white roses as props because she wanted to do sort of a juxtaposed floral element on top of an urban setting. And so looking at what my model was wearing and then looking at the props that she brought, we start walking around downtown SD. And as we were walking, my job as a photographer was to look for colors, look for textures, look for other interesting backdrops and angles that really lent itself well to her aesthetic and contributed to the overall vibe of what we were trying to accomplish in the shoot. Additionally, in my shooting technique, I was looking for leading lines, I was changing levels, And I was even posing my model in some dramatic and elongated poses that lended itself well to that 14mm focal length. Overall, that was the biggest improvisation area that lended itself to the success of the shoot. All right, so let's talk about the second major area where I had to improvise for the shoot. And that is actually in using that 14 to 24mm lens. Now, I'll say this, it's a great lens. It was really nice, really sharp, love that wide angle focal length, and it was a joy to use. However, there was one big problem with that lens. Now, on the front of the lens element, the actual glass element, it protrudes and it's very bulbous, which means you cannot put an ND filter on the front of that lens. There's actually a slot in the back of the lens where it connects to the camera where you can put an ND filter, but I did not own those ND filters. I actually bought some later on, but I didn't have them for the time of the shoot. So what I had to do in my shooting is improvise a little bit because of the time of day, and I wanted my model to be exposed. That meant that the sky was gonna be blown out. It just was. And so in order to compensate for that, most of the shots that I took did not really incorporate the sky. And the ones that I did take that incorporated the sky, I pretty much just resolved that, hey, I'm just gonna have to fix those in editing and try to make it look as best as I can. So yeah, those were some of the trade-offs with that lens. I'm glad I got the filters now because I think that's gonna make it even better, but at the time I didn't have them and I kind of had to work around that. Now, the third area where I had to improvise a little actually had nothing to do with photography technique. So when you do public shoots, especially in a downtown area where there's a lot of people, for the most part, most people don't care, but you do get those people who will stop and stare. They'll be checking y'all out heavy, seeing what you're doing. Some people will yell comments at your model, at you. Some people will try to stop you and have conversations. And in this case, we had one gentleman come up, very nice guy, and he asked to take a photo with the model. Normally, if it were a paid shoot or a shoot where we're trying to be on a tight schedule and really just get the work done before we lose the light or something like that, you know, I'd have to respectfully decline and say, you know, we're just trying to get the shoot done. We just want to make sure we get all the shots. I'm sorry, but you know, we can't do any additional photos right now. But since this was more of a relaxed shoot, very low key, and most importantly, my model was comfortable and willing to take the photo, we ran with it. You know, we took a photo with my model and this gentleman. It wasn't something I really edited in post, and oddly enough, he didn't even ask for me to share the photo with him, so that was interesting. But yeah, I think things like that happen are more of just like an interpersonal communication with you know, the outer public. It doesn't really have a lot to do with photography skill and like shooting technique or anything like that, but it's just talking to people, dealing with people, and making sure that your model is protected and that they know that you're trying to get work done, and you know, just basically not being distracted by the public. And so that was not as big of an area of improvisation, but it is something that comes up when you do public shoots. So yeah, those are some examples from my last photo shoot where I had to improvise. Like I said, I think improvisation is a very important skill for photographers to have, even if you don't run into the same scenarios that I just talked about. You may have different scenarios that you have to improvise on, but the point I'm trying to make is that things don't always go according to plan on photo shoots, and you have to be able to adapt, improvise, and come up with solutions on the fly in order to get the job done. But I'm curious to get your thoughts. Do you agree? Do you disagree? Have there been times where you had to improvise on photo shoots? If so, what happened? Let me know down in the comments. While you're down there, go ahead and drop this video a like if you found any value in it. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and I will catch y'all later.